when we were on tour together all those years ago, I remember asking you distinctly, like, were you a punk rocker when you were younger? And you said no, right?
Yeah.
Well,
But that's not entirely true, is it?
No, Jack, it certainly wasn't. Hello, everyone. My name is Damian, and I'm the host of Turned Out a Punk. And this is the secret punk rock history of Jack Black. Jack Black is one of the most beloved people in the world, like a movie star, musician, just an icon. But what's less known is about Jack's punk rock journey. Today we're going to be touching on Jack's connection to Devo, his love of bands like the Meat Puppets and Fugazi, and maybe even answering the question, is this Jack Black moshing for the band Visual Discrimination? A question which has plagued me for years now. Also, with Jack's help, we'll be taking a look at his career and the various points it intersects with punk throughout it. This is going to be a fun one. I win. I first met Jack back in the heady days of 2011 when my band Fucked Up went on tour with the Foo Fighters.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fucked Up!
Also on this tour was Jack's band Tenacious D.
Hello, everyone, and I'm here with my homeboy Jackie Black and me, Big D. And
This 2-week tour of Australia was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I could go on forever about it. I got a germs burn on that tour. I went to Penfold's Winery with Jack. We had a great time. But one of my biggest takeaways is that as cool as Jack Black seems in TV appearances and in movies, he is 10 times cooler in real life. Now, something interesting that I found on tour with the Foo Fighters is that everyone, from the band playing on stage to the most of the people doing all the hard work backstage, has been punk involved or hardcore involved at some point in their life. So it would come up a lot backstage when everyone was hanging out, which of course led me to ask Jack at some point, were you ever into punk or hardcore? And he was like, no, I was a metalhead. I was always just a metalhead. And something about his answer never really sat well with me. Once I returned home, I began the process of gathering evidence. And then 4 long years later, I felt I was finally ready to invite Jack on to Turned Out a Punk and present my case that he had been lying to me all those years ago. And he was, in fact, actually a punk. And that brings us to his first appearance on Turned Out a Punk.
I got to start this off the way I start them all off, which is, how'd you get into punk? Do you remember the first time you ever came across the genre?
My big bro, Howard Siegel, was a recording engineer, and he worked on Devo, Freedom of Choice. He was credited with coming up with the whip sound in Whip It. The sound that they had just sounded wrong, but then if he played it backwards, there was some technologies involved.
And Howard Siegel wasn't just responsible for one of the most memorable sound effects in music history. He also worked on records for everyone from Oingo Boingo to Wilson Pickett. Sadly passing away in the early 90s, it's undeniable the impression he made on young Jack.
So he took me to that show, the Freedom of Choice tour, Devo show, what is that, 1981? 1980?
I guess it'd be 80.
And
right?
yeah, and it was a mind blower.
The Devo Freedom of Choice tour comes up on this podcast a lot. In particular, actually, the show at the Santa Monica Civic, because it seems like everyone of a certain age was at that show. It was a real jumping on point for another generation of punks, and it was a night that certainly would warp young Jack's mind forever.
I'll tell you one thing about my memories from that mind blower of a show that Devo put on that night in Santa Monica when I was 11 years old. It started off with a short film that reminded me a lot of like Eraserhead. I had not seen Eraserhead at that time. Now, in retrospect, I put those two sort of in the same category of cinema. There was that industrial darkness and walking in a sort of it wasn't post-apocalyptic, but it was just sort of like sad and dark machinery, tapestry, and this just sort of dark sense of humor and this strange little boyo character. And it was it put you in a state, before the rock even started. They put you in this place where it was just very contemplative and otherworldly. It was pretty rad. It definitely made you feel like you were on acid. When I went to school the next day, I bragged to all the other kids that, I went to see Devo, and they were all jealous because they were all 11 and like, what? You got to see Whip It? Oh. And then I went home and I took my copy of Freedom of Choice, and I forged the signatures of all the names of all the band members in Devo onto my copy. But it looked really dumb. It looked like a little kid had forged the signatures, because was the case. So I took it to school the next day to show the naysayers. I flashed it to them real fast because I didn't want them to study the signatures. I was like, see, I told you. I got it signed from all the members of Devo because I'm my brother's friends. And then I put it in my locker, and I locked it, and I went to class, and when I came back to my locker, it had been busted open and someone stole my fucking bullshit forge. But the joke's on them because it's a worthless piece of shit.
I don't know about worthless, Jack. We are talking about a fake autographed Devo record by Jack Black. That's got to be a couple $100. One thing that Jack and I do definitely agree on, though, is that Devo is one of the greatest bands ever. And without them, music would be radically different now, even though we do disagree slightly on what genre they fall into.
I don't know if you classify Devo as a punk rock band. They were strange aliens from another planet, first and foremost. But I feel like they deserve their own genre because they were such a strange mixture. You know what it was? They were punk rock, but they were also like a surrealist performance artists almost. They had a concept. They came at you with like absurd short films before the show started. They came at you with characters, costumes. It wasn't just your typical like punk rock experience, right? Wouldn't you agree with that? There was a theatricality to their punk rock. They were like I don't know. That's it. I'm going to end that sentence with they were.
I totally agree with Jack that they are bigger than band or genre because they do have that concept that they're going into this with.
I mean, just the name Devo, it's de-evolution. It suggests like a whole theory and a whole premise and there's a whole like a theme to their existence. Not just each song, but to the whole project known as Devo. It's like it's a movement. I remember at the time thinking Devo, and someone explained to me, "Oh, it's Devo." Their theory is like the world is devolving. Like we're not evolving and getting more advanced. We're getting like dumber and dumber as time goes on. And I was like, that's a funny idea, but it's absolutely not true because look at technology. We're advancing all the time. But the more time goes by, the more I go, no, they're fucking right. Mm-hmm. We are all devolving. We all are getting stupider because of our technology. And it's very dark and grim. And their music's not really dark and grim. Their music's actually fucking danceable and joyous. But there's a message there that I appreciate because there's not a lot of bands that have like a mission like that. It was mind-blowing, and you'd think that would launch me into a world of punk rock. But I don't think I was really ready for it.
Around the same time as Jack is going to this Devo concert, he's starting his acting career, and he would land his first major role shortly thereafter.
When I was 13 years old, I did a commercial for Atari a video game called Pitfall.
Just last night, I was lost in the jungle with Pitfall Harry, surrounded by giant scorpions and man-eating crocodiles.
And shortly after this, Jack would wind up in one of my favorite TV shows of all time, The Fall Guy.
Oh, yeah. Fall Guy. That was like my first real gig, kind of. Like acting in a show with a plot, with a beginning, middle, and end. But, yeah, it was a flashback to when Lee Majors' character on that show was a kid. And I was trying to turn him, I was like his best friend that was trying to turn him to a life of crime to steal some baseball mitts from the local sporting goods store.
Somebody's coming. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, that's the role. It was a major stepping stone for me because my favorite show growing up was $6 Million Man. So I went in to audition for that, for the Fall Guy, and I got to meet Lee Majors, and I kicked ass in the audition, and he gave me the part. So it was like extra special. It was like I had been anointed by the Bionic Man.
Now in high school, Jack would once again begin to explore his musical horizons.
I started to get back into the punk rock when I was turned on to the Minutemen, who were no longer playing together at that point. It was Firehose, but Firehose was rad. I had this friend that was a great bass player. What was his name? Sean Wheatley. He was in a rad band called Mustard. And he would play all the rad punk rock jams on his turntable. And he said he loved Firehose because you could literally put the needle down anywhere you wanted on that record, Ragin' Full On, and it didn't matter where you laid the needle, it was going to be fantastic. So we tested his theory like 100 times and just randomizer, put the needle down in random spots and like, yep, this part is fantastic. It was just so packed with good fucking punk rock juice. I never knew what that guy, Ed from Ohio, was singing about. The lieutenant becomes casualty. Wait, that sounds actually kind of head politics. But there was some strange stream of conscious poetry that I never really understood. But fucking love to see them play live. Mike Watt, my favorite bass player, just blowing steam out of his fucking ears. And yeah, that drummer, everybody, it was one of the great three-piece bands.
All right, two quick cool things about Sean Wheatley. Number one, did you notice who was watching him play bass with Mustard in that photograph? Yep, Maya Rudolph. Secondly, before playing in Mustard, Sean Wheatley was part of a band called SOS, Shower of Smegma. Shower of Smegma was like a metallic punk band that played around the Los Angeles area in the mid-'80s. So Sean and Steven from Shower of Smegma would go on to form Mustard. Another member would go on to form the band Hedgehog, who had a split with the Japanese Doom on HG Fact Records, one of my favorite record labels. Oh, one day I'm going to do a video about HG Fact Records, I promise you that. But Ed Greger from Shower of Smegma would go on to play Noise for a Name. So there's that Epiphat connection with Mustard and Maya Rudolph. And oh my gosh, this is why we do this shit. This is why we do it.
Yeah. Dude, holy shit. I think you're right about Shower of Smegma. I'm going to have to buy it and do the needle drop test and see if every square inch of that thing is a blister creek. But I also got to give a shout to one of my favorite bands from high school, the Meat Puppets. That's a punk rock band that had a tremendous like country twang flavor, and I went to see them live, and that was a game changer for me. That was an experience. Kirk, was it? Is it Kurt? The brothers, the two brothers in there. Who you got? You got
in the meat. Oh, in the Meat Puppets.
Yeah.
The Kurt and Chris Kirkwood.
Thank you. Kurt Kirkwood was melting my brain with a guitar shred in the middle of a song, and he was just staring down the center of the audience. And his focus was so intense, I'm sure he was blazing on acid or something.
Yeah.
But he had everybody in the palm of his hand. It was just a fucking magic show. It was one of those shows where you look around and everyone's on the same page, just in a state, you know, of ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
And not because we're all blazing, because the music was just so damn good. Did you ever see Nirvana back in the day?
No, my friends went, but I got into Nirvana.
You were like, fuck this is too much hype. I'm not buying it.
No, I was just, I got into punk and stuff through Sonic Youth, and I kind of got into it.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit later. Like I got in 92, I got into Sonic Youth. So I didn't get a chance to see Nirvana, unfortunately. But amazing band.
That was one of the best concerts I ever saw.
When'd you see them?
It's one of those concerts though where like 90% of the people that say they were there were just saying they were there.
Yeah.
I was there. I saw him the night that Bill Graham died in San Francisco, and I knew it because they put it up, the Bill Graham rest in peace up on the marquee.
Thanks a lot. So tonight's show is dedicated to Bill Graham, famous rock and roll promoter. R.I.P.
Bill Graham is a rich motherfucker.
At the what the hell theater was it in San Francisco? Okay, now I can't remember the venue, so you're thinking this is bullshit. Jack wasn't there. I was there.
Dude, I will never doubt you on anything. I know, because you know what? One of my pieces of evidence that I wanted to introduce was the fact that when you and me went to see Off and the Hard-Ons play on a night off in Australia, Keith Morris was like, I remember you, Jack. I remember you from running around in Orange County back in the day. So if Keith remembers you, and Keith doesn't put over anyone, it means something's up.
I love that Keith Morris, man.
Oh, absolutely. And that's pre you doing those videos for them too.
That guy's a classic. I want a movie about him, you know. Yes. I don't know who would play him, but his voice, his voice is so distinct, and you just want to like follow him around with a camera and get some of that sweet punk rock magic down on celluloid forever.
Yeah, definitely. He's like, maybe it's a follow doc instead of a character piece, you know?
Maybe.
Because he is definitely...
I had the pleasure of partying with those guys on a couple music videos on the Off. And, you know, they're in the category of punk rockers that know how to have a good time and are funny as hell. Like, go check out some of those videos. There's some really funny shit on there. There was another band I wanted to say from my early days.
What's that?
That I loved. Might be my favorite punk band. The fucking Descendents.
Oh, yeah.
Milo Goes to College.
Absolutely.
Milo Goes to College is one of the great records. And recently, I stumbled upon this fucking gem of a documentary about the Descendents called...
Movieage? Is it? Filmage.
Filmage,
that's
Filmage.
It. Yes.
Filmage.
Yes.
Fantastic.
An amazing movie.
And you know what? The revelation was about that Anderson guy, the drummer.
Oh no, Bill Stevenson.
Stevenson, not Anderson. God, I'm an idiot.
No, you're
Bill
not. Don't
Stevenson.
Worry. Yes.
I didn't realize how much rocket sauce was Bill Stevenson. I just always assumed it's Milo. He's the front man. He's singing those songs. He went to college. He must be the one that was fucking the rocket sauce. I gave way too much credit to Milo and not enough to Bill Stevenson.
No, absolutely.
I just didn't, I guess, spend the time to read the liner notes or see who wrote this shit. But that guy was, what a force. What a creative force. And then you see where he went from, like, all the stuff he did with the Descendents and all, but also with, like, he would jump into Black Flag for periods of time, and, like, he was collaborating with tons of great people, and I saw him at a Tenacious D show one time because I think he was there because his kids were deep into the D, and I knew that he was in the audience, so I sang, like, in my solo, I sang some Descendents, a chunk from one of his songs, and afterwards, I was talking to him and I was like, "Dude, did you hear the song? I sang a little bit of Gene is Dead." And he was like, "No, when?" I was like, "Now you're coming." And I was like singing it back again to him, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't recognize that." I was trying to create a rainbow connection, but it didn't quite take. I know I'm going to remember some punk rock as soon as we hang up.
Oh my gosh, Jack! I didn't get to all my evidence, dude. I didn't get to you singing "Waiting Room" on Instagram.
Oh my God! Well, that's one of the fucking greats, no doubt. Fugazi. I remember listening to Fugazi in college going, "God, these guys are fucking hard as stone. Listen to how fucking serious this shit is. This is fucking bad. I bet you they're the fucking most serious badass." And then I went to see them live, and they were like dancing on stage during these songs. I was like, this is not what I expected, but I loved it. It was just that I didn't expect to see so much joy on the stage with that music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That music is so strong and hard, but the performance of it was like a revelation.
Did you get in trouble for moshing at that show?
No, okay. I didn't make it up to the pit for that one.
They got no love for the mosh pit.
Did you see that movie Instrument?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Great documentary about Fugazi. And the amazing thing about it is it's this beautiful movie about like a whole 15-year period. You kind of go on this journey with Fugazi, and you see not just their concerts and their professional life, but you kind of see what they're all about behind the scenes and who they are as people. And it was like, wow, this is a real amazing movie. But not one mention, or you didn't no waiting room.
No waiting room. No
waiting room anywhere in there. Not even in the credits.
That's like their Freebird.
How can you not have? Exactly? They were denying us the hits and so punk rock, you sons of bitches. So when I was doing my Instagram, I was like, I'm gonna go straight to the waiting room, baby.
It's amazing when you're in a band how there's always that Ian MacKaye sitting on your shoulder telling you not to sell out at every turn. It's like, were you a mosher though? Were you a slammer?
I did dip my toe into the mosh pit from time to time, but it wasn't like a thing like, all right, it's Saturday night, time to go moshing. It was a thing that would happen, you know.
You get caught in the mosh.
When the spirit moved me. I'd steer clear if it felt like a violent mosh, though.
Yeah.
I'm a little scared. I'm a scared of like a flying fist.
Yeah,
people using nothing's worse than someone using the mosh pit as an excuse to fucking haul off and punch someone in the face.
Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. Bringing their rage. You got plausible deniability. No, I was just moshing. That one got away from me.
Which brings us to the photograph. As I mentioned off the top, shortly after getting back from the Tenacious D Foo Fighters tour, a photo began circulating online that purported to show Jack Black moshing for the band Visual Discrimination. Now, I love Visual Discrimination. I love Jack Black. And now that I've established that he did indeed mosh, let's find out about this photograph.
Jack, there's this photo which is circulated around the internet that I need to ask you about. It's of a mosh pit at a show for the Orange County band. I believe they're an Orange County band, Visual Discrimination. And the show, is in Reseda, California. And there was a gentleman in the mosh pit with very curly, long hair. And it has been purported to be yourself on the internet for a number of years now.
Dude, I have no memory of that. What year was that photograph taken? Is there any
87
more information you can give me?
87.
1987. In Reseda?
In Reseda. Can I send you the photo?
Yeah, send it over.
Okay, I'm going to send this over.
I'll tell you. It might refresh my memory.
Yeah, Jack, the photo.
Do you know who that band is?
The band is Visual Discrimination, I believe, which is a Orange County band that put out an LP on Nemesis Records. I believe 2 LPs on Nemesis Records. They were kind of crossover, like, metal-y, but definitely like fast punk, but like certain like hardcore thrash.
Tell me what they're called again.
Visual Discrimination.
God, there's just I have zero recollection. Visual Discrimination.
Yeah. And they would have been thrashy, so it would have appealed to your metal side and also this, punk leaning, and it would have been around the same time as Mustard, or that SOS band, or just after that SOS band, I guess, that we talked about earlier.
I'm looking them up to see if I can hear. Maybe the music will bring something back.
Okay. I appreciate you taking this as serious as you are, because I trust me, we take this.
Well, I want to get to the very bottom of it before I say absolutely not. It was not me.
Yeah.
The number one song from Visual Discrimination is "Crawling." I'm about to listen to it. Yeah, I don't have any recollection of going to see a band called Visual Discrimination, and I wonder if there was someone else on the bill that I was like, oh, but I don't know who else was on the bill at that concert. I don't really remember going to Reseda to see shows.
Okay,
that's just deep in the valley. All right, I'm not.
They're actually an interesting band because they came back together in the late 90s. And did another 7-inch, and I was like a huge fan of that 7-inch, and then found out about these early records, and then of course saw this photo and was like, wow, that would be an amazing coincidence. But we're going to have to leave this one in the unknown column for now.
Yeah, sorry. I don't trust my own brain.
Well, I wasn't about to trust Jack's brain either, and I kept up my research. And a few months later, after receiving a hot tip about what show this potentially could be, I invited old Jack back on Turned Out a Punk.
Well, this brings me to why I really need you on the show, is because I think we have more information on the great mystery of whether or not that was a photograph of you moshing at that show way back when. I have now, thanks to, once again, a listener who was very, very excited about the fact that we had uncovered this information, sent in a flyer for the show that he thinks it might have been. And it turns out the show would have been headlined by Bad Religion. Jack, do you remember going to see Bad Religion at the country club?
Oh, shit. No. That I would have remembered that. I wonder if that was pre-Brooks Wackerman Bad Religion.
It would have been way, that would have been
way pre. I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, man. I really want to give you that closure.
Well, sadly, I guess the mystery of whether or not Jack Black moshed for Visual Discrimination will have to remain unsolved for now. But Jack's time spent in other mosh pits of the legendarily violent late 80s LA punk scene would not be for naught, because it would actually serve as research for some of his early acting roles.
Well, you seem to play bad guys a lot, because after you were on the show, someone sent in a screen capture of you playing kind of like a punk rocker on the show Life Goes On.
That's right. I guess I had a little bit of a devilish look.
Yes.
little mischievousness as a kid that got me some of those good baddie roles. Also, a little known nugget, Never Ending Story Part 3. I play a skinhead gang leader.
What's up, little homie?
Very scary role. The only skinheads I was really familiar with were like Suicidal Tendencies.
Yep.
But trying to think of some other like good examples of my Southern California skinhead experience. Nothing's coming to mind really.
High school would also be a place for Jack to learn some lessons about his other entertainment passion, making music. And thus, the long path to the D would begin.
Did you have a high school like band at all?
I tried, but it was a failed attempt. We rehearsed a few times and we played one party.
What was it called?
I don't remember what the name of our band was. Okay. I did not name the band.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have remembered that. Yeah. But maybe I'm trying to mentally block it because the party we played one song. I think we played a cover of like Iron Man or something. And
you pluck along with me, okay? If you can.
It started off where people were listening to us, but like by the middle of the song, everyone had turned their backs on us and was talking. They were talking amongst themselves. Mm-hmm. And we finished the song and we're like, should we play another song? And we're like, nah, let's just call it a night. Yeah, they're not into it. And as we were getting ready to leave and pack up our gear, this younger kid named Brent Mesky came up and said, hey, can we borrow your gear just for 1 second? We want to play a song we just wrote. And we were like, all right, man, good luck. And he and Joey Warrenker and some other kid got up and used our instruments, and the party just exploded. Everybody loved the kids with their brilliant little, catchy little ditty song. And that's when I decided, I was never gonna be in a band again.
Well, we all know Jack would not stay true to his word about not forming another band, and we will get back to the journey to Tenacious D in 1 second, but we cannot gloss over the name Joey Warrenker. Joey Warrenker is a producer, plays in REM, plays in Adams for Peace, played with Dwight Yoakam, played with everybody. He is a go-to session musician and producer. He is the brother of Anna Warrenker from the band That Dog. An incredible band, and she's actually married to Stephen McDonald, who used to be in Off, who we talked about before, and we'll be talking about him again in a second because he's in Tenacious D, but we'll come back to that. And they are both the children of Lenny Warrenker, and he was the former president of Warner Brothers Records. And actually, their grandfather was the guy that formed Liberty Records and was the inspiration for the character Simon from Alvin and the Chipmunks. But what makes Joey's career so cool to us over here at Turned Out a Punk is that his first real band was the band Walt Mink from Minneapolis, Minnesota. He formed it when he was in college there. They were signed to Skeen Records, which we all know is the label home of Fred Armisen's band Trenchmouth and Green Day, and the Fuel Split, and Go from New York City, and the Hard-Ons, and Craig from the Hold Steady's first band. It's a very important label, and you better believe we're going to be talking about Skeen Records in the future. But for now, let's get back to Jack's journey to forming the greatest punk supergroup of all time, Tenacious D.
I saw a clip years ago, and I think it's from like a student movie of you singing. And you sound like almost like you're just like a punk rock style vocal, like in like a forest.
Oh my God, you saw that?
It was online. You can't find it anymore. Like I went looking for the clip today, and I can't find that clip anymore. But that was online of you like singing like a punk. It sounded like a punk song.
Yes, yeah, that was a movie that I did when I was in high school that a friend of mine directed named Brett Morgan. Mm-hmm. We were in the same school. We were at Crossroads in Santa Monica, and this guy did this student film. about a punk rocker. It was like it was not very good. Look, we were like 16 years old.
Well, the song sounds awesome. Your vocal on that sounded cool.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, that was actually another member of Mustard, Daryl Goldfarb, on guitar on that jam. He was a really good guitar player. But yeah, Brett Morgan, the guy who directed that, has gone on to be like one of the great documentary filmmakers. I saw this. He did the one on
Nirvana,
Kurt Cobain.
Right?
Yeah. It was a montage of Heck.
Mm-hmm.
That's worth checking out. And he just did another one about that woman Jane Goodall, who studied the chimpanzees, called Jane.
Oh, awesome! No, I've seen montage of Heck, but I got to see Jane.
Yeah, you don't need to see that thing we did in high school, but you should see those other ones because more recently. And it wasn't until much later when I met Kyle Gass in the Actors Gang Theater Company, where I was like jamming with him, and we were doing like funny songs, and it was just it's like, oh, I know this is my path.
Mm-hmm.
I cock, but it's got to be funny. It can't be straight up serious. It's too painful, that road of like the serious rocker.
And now, Tenacious D has come together. As I said before, one of the greatest punk supergroups of all time.
But what jam off of any of our albums really reads like, oh, this is a straight punk rock jam?
All right, Jack's right. They don't really have any punk songs per se, but they are kind of like a punk supergroup. All right, minus the guy from Phish. First of all, you got Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl from Mission Impossible, from Scream, and from Dane Bramage. And of course, on bass in Tenacious D is the previously mentioned punk legend Stephen McDonald. Stephen and his brother Jeff formed Red Cross in 1978 under the name The Tourists. They were 11 and 13. By the time they were 12 and 14, they were opening for Black Flag. If you have not heard Stephen McDonald's episode of Turned Out a Punk, stop everything and listen to it.
Yes, S. McD.
Did you ever see Red Cross
White
back?
Stripes.
Did you ever see?
Oh, yes, Red Cross. I called them White Stripes. What an idiot.
Remember when he did that White Stripes thing where he played bass over all their songs?
Yeah, he called it Red Stripes.
Red Stripes, that's
why
right.
I got confused.
Where did you meet him? Like, how did that lineup kind of come together for that record?
He came to a Tenacious D show early on and just was like, dude. And I listened to his records and was a fan without ever having seen him. But he was just like, you guys are great. And that was back when we didn't have an album. It was just me and Kyle, acoustic rocking. And he said, let me play bass in your band. And we're like, oh shit, it's on. And then we got this other guy, Warren Fitzgerald from the Vandals, was into it too, and we met him through David Cross and Mr. Show. He was hanging out watching those live tapings back in the 90s of Mr. Show, which was like the fucking seminal rad alternative comedy television show of the 90s, you know. And that was like a scene. A lot of people were going just to watch the tapings of that show, and it was a great place to like meet people and start up other projects. Like 100 other fucking rad comedy projects came out of that scene.
That was your first TV show too, right? When you were on Mr. Show. First TV appearance, right?
Yep. That's right. Like David Cross came to see Tenacious D play in a little club in downtown LA called Al's Bar. It's not there anymore, I don't think. And he was like, you guys got to open for Mr. Show. Just come out and play. We're going to do some live shows. This is before they had the TV show.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we'll do that. Why not? And we met all of those guys, and they had their show, and they were so rad. And they asked us if we wanted to do a little mini show in front of Mr. Show, you know. And that was that's really how I got my career started, was with Tenacious D, and David Cross and Bob Odenkirk. So yeah, even though I had a little part for then, I do credit Mr. Show with really launching my actual career.
And another punk rock connection too, David Cross, punk rocker, former guest of this show.
Oh yeah, no, he knows his shit. He's got an encyclopedic memory. He's funny, and his great stuff is on purpose.
Have you ever seen that clip of him and RuPaul from like 82 smoking cigarettes in like in Atlanta?
No.
But
awesome. I know that's his hometown.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's at RuPaul and the U-Hauls, RuPaul's punk band or new wave punk band. One of their shows, and at one point the guitar player pulls out a cigarette and needs someone to light it, and who comes in to light the cigarette? David fucking Cross.
That's awesome.
Definitely check out David Cross's episode of Turned Out a Punk for that story and a whole bunch more. But he wasn't the only punk on the set of Mr. Show. Tom Kenny, a.k.a. SpongeBob SquarePants, along with Bobcat Goldthwait from Police Academy movies and also an incredible film director and writer in his own right, and a stand-up comedian legend, they both played in the Killed by Death Gods, The Trend, a record that will live perennially on my want list. But now, back to Warren Fitzgerald and the Vandals.
We mentioned Warren Fitzgerald earlier. Were you a fan of the Vandals at all? Did you ever get to see them?
I did get to see the Vandals, and I do love the Vandals. Once again, it's the combo of the good hard rock and punk rock and comedy. They understand like that mixture.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chosen few who get it, and and Warren just in general is an interesting bird. He's a rare, fascinating character. I don't have that many obsessions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most people I just don't zero in on. But once in a while, a Warren Fitzgerald will come around, and he'll be like, "That dude warrants further study." I'm just into his he's a Renaissance man.
Mm-hmm.
He's a monstrous guitar player and songwriter, but he's also an interesting visual artist. I don't know if you ever got a chance to see any of his paintings, but he's a cool cat. And he's one of these guys where not enough time in the day. It seems like he's always got a lot of interesting fires and a lot of different genres and venues. And I like it that he writes songs for other people too. You know, he's really great. That's when you know that an artist has it really going on. When they're like, "Oh, my cup runneth over. You sing this one. You do that one." And he works on assignment really well. You know that he wrote the opening song for School of Rock.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's all Warren Fitzgerald. I asked him to help me out because I was trying to write some songs for that movie, and I needed just a blistering monster jam out of the gate, and he knew what to do. And I know that he wrote another song for a rad band out of Orange County that I met because I did that show, Yo Gabba Gabba.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the rad punk rock kids show from the early 2000s.
Ready to see Daddy? Hey, it's Daddy! Look, it's Daddy!
Hey everyone, I'm Damian. How you doing?
It's Daddy! Hi, Daddy!
I want to show you a dance today. Do you all want to dance?
Yeah!
This is called the disco roll. Everyone, you do it by putting your hands in the sky.
Up to the sky.
Down to the ground.
Down to the ground.
Hand to the sky.
Up to the sky.
And down to the ground.
Down to the ground.
And roll forwards and back.
Forwards and back.
Excellent. Okay, everyone, can we try it all together?
But that's all Christian. It's that dude from
Aquabats, right?
the Aquabats.
Mm-hmm.
And but Warren Fitzgerald wrote the theme for the Aquabats Super Show.
Oh.
The Aquabats Super Show. Yeah, he's a tunesmith.
I had no idea. That's another credit that I guess eluded me on that one with him.
And he loves to whip it out. He loves to whip it out live.
Yes, I've seen that. I definitely have seen that over the years.
He loves to whip it out and push it against the glass.
Yeah, or his guitar too. I think I've seen before.
I think he's got a trick where he stuffs it into a bottle somehow. He'll be able to squeeze it through the hole and then just let the bottle hang. I don't know.
That's a true Renaissance man. Like, not just a master of comedy, but physical comedy in the literal sense.
Jack may also have been familiar with them because he, of course, co-starred in the so-called Vandals episode of The X-Files, because it featured a Vandals t-shirt, some posters, and actually I think a Vandals song on the soundtrack as well. Anyway, it was a big deal for me as a young punker. I still remember being in my friend's basement watching that episode. And again, Jack would not be the only punk rocker on set, because Gillian Anderson, a.k.a. Scully, was also a punk rocker and a dream guest to have on the show one day. Now to awkwardly transition from Warren Fitzgerald's puppetry of the penis back to talking about Yo Gabba Gabba, but there is a very clever reference to a very obscure TV pilot buried in Jack's appearance on that show.
Heat Vision and Jack. An unbelievable pilot that never went. It was just a pilot, right, for TV?
That's right. That's right. One of the ones that got away.
Well, I've seen a very poor quality bootleg copy of it years ago, but when my kids and I were discovering Yo Gabba Gabba and the brilliance that is Yo Gabba Gabba, on your episode, you emerge on a talking motorcycle. Was that a nod to Heat Vision and Jack?
Of course it was.
It was?
I mean, of course. I mean, in my mind it was. You'd have to ask Christian. I remember thinking, well, obviously this is a nod to Heat Vision and Jack. But I was basically just doing what they told me. It wasn't my idea to do that, but yeah, the talking motorcycle. Dude, Dan Harmon, Rob Schraub, who are now like... Dan Harmon has the most popular animated show on television now. Have you watched any of the Rick and Morty's?
Yeah, no, it's it's crossed over now. It's like, I would say, just like a pop culture phenomena.
Yeah. So I'm stoked to be part of his pre Rick and Morty history, because that's an amazing accomplishment that he's gone on to do since then.
What an amazing show. It's like you, Ben Stiller, him, Owen Wilson, right?
Yes, yeah, Owen Wilson as the voice of the motorcycle.
Let me know when your tires start wearing down, Heat Vision.
My wheels are fine, Jack, but I could use some food.
Which is the easiest gig. He's barely in it when you think of, like, he was there for like a half hour in the recording studio, but still, yes. It technically counts as a collaboration between me and Owen Wilson. Yeah, that was a heartbreaker. I really wanted that to get picked up to series, because once again, it had my favorite element from childhood, the $6 Million Man. It owed a lot to that Bionic Man 1970s magic. You know what I mean?
Heat Vision and Jack producer Ben Stiller also has a punk rock connection. Years ago, Mike Sniper, noted record collector and runner of the record label Captured Tracks and the store Captured Tracks, was doing a record buy and came across a unknown LP by a band called Capital Punishment. He purchased a lot of records and listened to the Capital Punishment record and discovered on the back of the LP there was the name Ben Stiller. Upon further research, he realized it was the same Ben Stiller, and actually Ben Stiller's gotten back together with him and they've done a new record since then. And it's another dream guest for this podcast, but let's move on. Speaking of weird spin-off /sequels /tributes, Jack was in another movie, Enemy of the State, which people have alleged for years is a sequel to one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah, that was floated. That's what it was? It was a sequel to The Conversation, but it's so different in tone and style.
Oh yeah.
Even though he is technically the same character, I don't think of it as a sequel to The Conversation at all. I personally, I think it's a fun like popcorn thriller, but The Conversation is a work of art.
Yeah.
They're two different things completely. If you wanted to, you could compare it to like The Color of Money as a sequel to the Hustler.
The Hustler. That's it. Sorry.
Which is like but that's closer to staying true to the original intent. You know, when you got Scorsese picking up where the old classic left off. But even then, it's like so much time has passed and they are such different films. It doesn't really work. I've never said it. You can't make a sequel 30 years later and expect it to track properly.
And come on. You think by now Jack would do a project without another punk rock connection? This time it comes in the shape of Will Smith. That's right, Will Smith and his wife Jada Pinkett Smith in the early 2000s were working on a project for FX television around the Courage Crew, which is a straight-edge crew from the southeastern part of the state of Ohio. At some point, the show pivoted to be about the band Bury Your Dead, and sadly never came to be. We are, however, left with this early 2000s cell phone camera footage of Will Smith singing on stage with Bury Your Dead. And Will Smith wasn't the only one changed by punk rock. Jack Black coming on turned out a punk, left him a little bit changed.
Since you were last on the show, I feel like we've seen Jack Black turn a little more Jello Biafra.
Say that again?
Well, I think you've turned a little more Jello Biafra. You've gotten a little more political as of late. Or I've just
yeah,
watched,
a little bit.
Yeah. So I'd like to think that was maybe part of this show, bringing out your punk rock side and not the terrible state of the world we're in right now.
I'll give you 10%.
10% is good enough, you know.
I mean, you weren't looking for like 50-50 split.
Hell no.
I have to be the captain of my own voyage.
Absolutely. No, I just want to know that we're in the stew somewhere. We're like a little bit of salt on top.
You definitely lit a fire.
We are just the fire starters, twisted fire starters. Well, that is it for another one of these things that I'm doing over here. Check out my podcast, Turned Out a Punk. You can find this episode and a lot of the episodes referenced throughout it, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe this thing. Check out the other video I made on Zach Blair and MVP. Check out all the links in the bio. And thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with it this long, if you did.